Hey Sparks, what the heck is up? And also, happy Halloween. And for those of you watching on a different day, also happy Halloween, because on Innistrad, it's always Halloween. So following up my last video of, going over the lore of Innistrad, and honestly, if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend you watch it before watching this, because I will be referencing some stuff from it. However, we're going to go back and look over the actual geography of the plains, and really give you that mental picture of the plane itself. Also, be sure to stay tuned, because I will be giving away a very special giveaway, because it is my favorite time of the year, and more details on that near the end of the video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Here we are again, and this time I'm going to be your humble tour guide to the less than friendly plains of Innistrad. So first off, in the east, we have the really only safe place left for humans on the plains, and this province is known as Gavany, and it's home to the largest city on Innistrad, Thraben, and it's about 400 square miles, or 1,036 square kilometers, and to put that into perspective, it's about the size of San Antonio, the second largest city in Texas. Thraben is a very well guarded city from most threats native to the plains, and this is also a huge place that has awesome people in it, such as the Cathar, Lunar Machias, and even the Church of Avacyn. Darkness really has a hard time reaching here, but this is Innistrad, so it's not impossible by any means, and it also suffers from a huge weakness. So it's a metropolis for humans, and apart from the typical shenanigans that humans have, like thieves and murderers and whatnot, there's also a lot of dead that are buried in and around this city. That means that when they don't want to stay dead, it can pose a huge threat as they're already within the province's borders. Along with the undead, it also has its fair share of vengeful spirits, though many of them are noble and heroic, and a good example is the Geist of Saint Traft. South of Thraben, we have another notable area called Nearheath, and it's a string of several towns that make up this area, and it's also really well guarded being so close to Thraben. A few locations to think about is Hanweir, and this is an agricultural area for Gavany, and it was a source for a lot of trade in the region. However, it was destroyed when Embercruel invaded the plains. Another notable location would be Estwald, which is a vast area used for woodcutting. Well, was a vast area, and it's now just cinder after the elemental spirit Malignus incinerated the area. As you can tell, darkness does sometimes creep through here. Finally, we do have Moorland, and this is a location east of Thraben where few humans dare to travel, and it's also the home of the necromancer and alchemist duo Gisa and Geralf. Another notable amalgamation would be Grimgrin, a behemoth stitched together and which caused a huge problem for a while. All in all, Gavany, even with all of its faults, is still probably the safest place for humans to reside on the plains. Moving to the west of Gavany, we reach one of the largest, but funnily enough, the least developed province, and that's called Kessig. It's around 800 square miles, or 2,072 square kilometers, and another reference points would be it's about 2.5 times the size of Dallas, another city in Texas. This is a really cool place on Innistrad, and it's a massive forest that is forever in the season of autumn, so kinda like my dream home, if you know it wasn't littered with werewolves and other terrifying things that are in there. It's safe to say that most who venture inside never make it out. So with these trees permanently tainted that golden orange color, it makes for a beautiful sight to behold. However, it's said that the forest is haunted by the spirits of the past, and they have blighted these grounds for long before the coming of Avacyn and the formation of the church. Despite this, humans are not absent. They make a meek living here, mostly trappers and farmers, and they tend to stay on the outskirts, and very few venture deep. No one will venture in the forest at night, because under the silver of the moon it gives rise to werewolves, and at their strongest and most active at the night. Traveling in packs, they will grant anyone the gift of doom who's caught out. Avabrook is a notable city here, and they found out the hard way that it can be incredibly dangerous. Once their protective wards from the church wore off, a pack of werewolves cursed them using blood magic, turning them all into new additions to their pack. Now this area has a new name, Hollowhinge, and this is a fable that's told throughout Innistrad, warning all of those the danger of messing with the land that's not yours. A few other notable areas such as Udenwald and Lamholt are two locations where famous creatures hail from. I really like these provinces being so close together because they're two sides of the same coin. They're similar but also very different. One represents represents the hope of human survival, while the other represents the ruthlessness of the very same survival. Moving on to the far west of the plains, we'll reach the province of Nephalia, and if you notice, it's the only city that's close to the sea, and with this comes its own power and peril of its own. Since the body of water moves inland, it has its fair share of swamps and marshlands as well. Being this close to water means that yes, it's a trade city, and anyone who has anything to sell or maybe work for the docks, this might be the place for you. Well, maybe. It should also be noted that people in this area are master woodworkers, and they take a lot of pride in even magical augmentation of their work, and these artisans make the strongest houses and best cathedrals and largest ships among the plain. Though recently they have depleted their lumber yards, so they might have to move elsewhere for their crafts if something's not done about their gluttony. However, not all are stressed about the destruction of the forest. An ancient and noble race of vampires actually welcome it, and they may have been the ones who orchestrated it. The Strongkirk bloodline, and unlike most vampires, they tend to live openly, side by side, or even fang to throat with their human neighbors. They are mostly kind to their human acquaintances and even fund a lot of the happenings that go on in town. However, this does serve a dual purpose. With the province thriving and all the authorities paid for, the Stormkirk have an all-you-can-eat buffet as long as the humans have business to attend to. Apart from humans and vampires, there's also a third denizen that shares the same space, and they're not friendly to neither humans nor vampires. Geists, spirits, it doesn't really matter what you call them, but with all the unrest, they are there to haunt anyone who is unlucky enough to anger them. There's a saying in Nephalia that ghosts come and go with the tide, and ironically, that's exactly what they do. And if we remember from the last video, the moon has a special property on these plains, and just like our own, the moon interacts with the ebb and the flow of the shore. As the moon pulls the tide forward, so do the spirits that linger. The locals call this event the Nevelgast, the rising tide of the dead. It takes the form of a deep fog that engulfs the coast, and most of the ghosts that are brought in with it are sailors who perished at the seas. One notable city is the trading port of Havengruel, this being the largest and most protected by the church. Evil finds it very hard to manifest there, though the people who live there are not the kindest to the church because they see them as something that's limiting their trade, regardless of the safety that it provides. Nephalia is a great place to go to if you want to hear a good ghost story. However, be wary as most of those tales might be closer to fact than fiction. The last place in our journey is actually north of Gavany, and this place is known as Stesnia, and as this is the foothold of one of the strongest races on Innistrad, the vampire. This is also the least explored. Well guarded by the terrain and the military, a few venture in their borders, and even less survive. Vampires are a strong and noble race, and they have achieved a very powerful planeswalker among them named Sorin Markov. There are 3 houses that reside here, and each a progenitor at the lead, the vampire who started the bloodline. Vampires are immortal, and they have been around for a very long time. The 3 houses are the Folkenrath, the Voldaren, and the Markov. The Folkenrath are the most abundant in Stesnia, and also the most vicious. They are a more military-driven household that focus on warfare and power. They rarely hide their appearances and even make it a spectacle when they want to feed, and they normally do it publicly. The Voldaren are the wealthiest of the vampire houses, and they're led by their blood queen Olivia Voldaren. Their bloodline is represented with money and sophistication. They only dine on the finest stock and wear the most extravagant clothing. They are normally the center of attention and conflict of the households. They do throw pretty sick bangers though. Lastly, we have the Markov household, and this is actually led by Edgar Markov himself, one of the oldest and most noble bloodlines. In addition, they are the most numerous throughout the plains. Sorin is also from this bloodline, and when he was transformed, his spark was ignited. Edgar being unique to himself, and he lives more humbly and away from the vampire families. He's not really interested in the politics that reside there. Ancient humans also populate this area far before the rise of the vampires, mainly herders and old farming villages that have been around for a long time. They sometimes fall victim to the insatiable hunger of the families, but they're very resilient and refuse to move away from their land that they've tended to for generations. condition. These vampires are kinder to them than most, and mainly because they're a source of food, and they will sometimes defend their livestock from others who wish to do them harm, like werewolves and other beasts lurking on Innistrad. It's kind of like livestock inception, if you will. It should also be noted that the wool produced by these humans here is also known to be the finest in all the lands. And if you plan on traveling to Stesnia as your tour guide, I recommend that you don't. Well, there you have it, guys, the geography of Innistrad, and I am Terragaze, and this is my favorite planes on the Citadel. Actually, hold up, I want to reel you guys back in here for a moment. I do have a Halloween giveaway planned for this video, and as promised, here are the juicy details. So I have a foiled mint condition Soren Markov, and I wanted to give it away. And addition, since Commander Legends is around the corner, I will include 3 unopened packs of that as well. So, how do you enter? Well, there are 3 ways of doing so, and by doing all 3, you'll grant an additional entry for each time. The first one is easy enough. Just subscribe to my channel by clicking wherever that button's located at. The second way is by simply joining our Discord, and the link is in the description below. And the final and most important way, granting you 2 entries for the price of 1, will be to retweet this post that I make on Twitter. This will also ensure that all your friends have a chance of obtaining this rad reward. Just tag me in the post and I'll link everything down in the bottom as well. One last thing, I'll also offer to sign the card if you wish. However, I understand I am but a pleb. So if you don't want that, I'll go ahead and contact you and you'll be able to opt in or out. The deadline for all of this will be November 21st. And other than that, guys, you have a very spooky evening, and Terra out. Actually, before I leave, maybe suggest some planes for me that you might want me to do. Maybe that'd be cool. Anyways, take it easy. Bye!